There are a large percentage of women in America using the birth control pill to avoid pregnancy. Most of these women have no idea how the birth control pill really works, including myself. I used the pill for about 4 months into my marriage, and I didn't know what was going on in my body. When I did find out, I was pretty shocked. So that's what we're going to talk about today. How does the hormonal birth control pill work, and what does it do to the ovulation cycle? Hi, if you're new to this channel, my name is Kari Beadner. I am a certified fertility care practitioner at Ashwood Fertility Care Center, where we believe that women deserve to understand, embrace, and love their natural cycles. So how does the birth control pill work? Well, there are 3 mechanisms that are at work to allow the woman to avoid pregnancy while taking this pill. First, for us to understand how the 3 mechanisms work, we do need to understand a little bit about human conception. Here you see the women's reproductive organs, and you can see that there is the uterus, which looks like an upside down pear. We have the fallopian tubes that go off each side. You can see these almond-shaped organs called the ovaries. Now, within the ovaries, there are 400,000 undeveloped eggs already within these ovaries when you are born, which is pretty fantastic. About 16-week gestation inside of your mother's womb, you already had all of the eggs you will ever produce in your lifetime. Amazing fact. So one of these 400,000 eggs is released at the time of ovulation, which is the main event of the whole menstrual cycle. You can see that it gets swept into the fallopian tube by these little fimbriae that are not connected to the ovary. And there, if sperm are available at the time of ovulation, they will meet the egg here. The sperm have quite a journey. They have to make their way through 3 months of maturing in the man's body. Then during the act of ejaculation, go out of the man's body and into the woman's body during a full active intercourse. The sperm then have to make their way up through the vagina, through the cervix, which you can see there at the neck of the uterus. And in that cervix, there is cervical mucus being produced only during the time that ovulation is taking place. And that cervical mucus is really vital for the survival of the sperm. So if there is good mucus here in the cervix, then the sperm can make its way up through the uterus over to the fallopian tube that is closest to the ripened egg. Okay, so when the ovulation occurs after that ripened egg is there, it gets swept into the fallopian tube. Okay, and it's there at the end of the fallopian tube that the sperm meets the egg. When the sperm meets the egg, that is conception. That is the beginning of every human life. Okay, so from here, once conception has taken place there at the very end of the fallopian tube, the cell division begins. And so this cell is going to divide into 2, and then into 4, into 6, on and on and on, for about 6 to 9 days as it travels down the fallopian tube into the uterus, which I like to call the hotel of new life. Okay, it's the place where a new human being can grow and flourish for its 9 months journey towards birth. When the baby comes into the uterus, it then attaches itself to the lining of the uterus that had been proliferating throughout the woman's cycle. After that, that is called implantation. The baby then grows full term to 9 months, and then birth happens. Of course, babies are born prior to full term at many different phases throughout pregnancy, but that's the goal, is to go 9 months and then for the baby to be born. Okay, so it's important for us to understand how conception occurs. Now, let's take a look at the 3 mechanisms of the birth control pill. Mechanism number 1. First, the pill is to keep the woman from ovulating. Okay, so that's a pretty good way to avoid pregnancy if you are not releasing an egg, right? Now, I personally, and I'm sure you know at least one person who has achieved a pregnancy while taking the birth control pill. So we know that there is a percentage of time that this mechanism fails. The woman does ovulate, right? Then the second mechanism of the birth control pill would be to thicken the cervical mucus that is produced by the cervical crypts. Okay, again, like I just shared with you, we need good cervical mucus that looks like egg white or aloe vera jelly for sperm to survive. If that cervical mucus is thick and the sperm are unable to transport through the cervical mucus, they cannot reach the egg. So this again is a pretty good way to avoid pregnancy. If there is not good cervical mucus there, the sperm can't survive, can't get to the possibly ovulated egg. Now, unfortunately, this mechanism works so well that sometimes women, when they come off of the pill and they try to achieve pregnancy, have a challenge because their cervical crypts are not producing that good cervical mucus that is needed in order to sustain the life of the sperm to be able to have a natural conception. So that is mechanism number 2. Again, we all know someone who has achieved pregnancy while on the pill. So that means that mechanism 1 failed, the woman did ovulate. Mechanism 2 failed, the sperm did make its way up through the cervical mucus, up through the cervix, through the uterus to the end of the fallopian tube, and did conceive a child. If those 2 mechanisms fail, we have a third mechanism as the main backup. And what this is the lining of the uterus is going to not proliferate, not grow, and not allow for the baby to implant into the uterus. So if mechanism number 1 fails, the woman does ovulate. Mechanism 2 fails, the sperm does penetrate through the cervix, through the uterus, and up into the fallopian tube and does conceive a child. Mechanism 3 is to not allow the uterus to proliferate. Therefore, the new life is unable to then implant into the side of the uterus to allow implantation to take place. It's at the time of implantation that the hormone HCG is released and the woman gets a positive pregnancy test with a home pregnancy test. At this point, if the couple did achieve a pregnancy, if the woman was pregnant because conception did occur, they may have never known that they actually achieved a pregnancy because they never had a positive pregnancy test, because the baby was unable to implant into the side of the uterus. Therefore, by definition, the birth control pill would be called an abortifacient, meaning that a new life was created but ended and the baby went out with the next period. Right? So those are the 3 mechanisms of the birth control pill. It's so very important for every woman to understand this because the birth control pill is the #1 medication given to all women for almost every problem she may have in her ovulation or reproductive health. So if you didn't know about how the birth control pill worked before, now you know. I'd love to answer any more questions you have about this, and we would love to teach you more about how your ovulation cycles work and how you can actually plan your family, understand the days of fertility and infertility without the birth control pill. We would also love to teach you about NAPRO technology that helps you to discover and identify and treat underlying health issues that women have in their reproductive lives without hormonal contraception. Pretty amazing stuff. And this is why we believe here at Ashwood Fertility Care Center that every woman has a good body with a natural, unique cycle. And each woman deserves to understand, embrace, and love her natural cycle. If you'd like to learn more about this, go ahead and find us at ashwoodfertilitycare.com.